So let us put ourselves in the presence of the source of life, source of light, and the source of love. When we say put ourselves in the presence of the source of life and light and love, we are really referring to the primal causal existence. The Vedic kind of meditation will be centered around a key question. In essence, at root, what am I? What is life? What is existence? At the base of this also, we find light or consciousness. When that unfolds, we find aware beings, beings that react to their environment, and ultimately beings who intelligently analyze their surroundings. And when we talk about love, we are talking about our essential joyful nature of bliss. Let us now enter into stillness and quietness. Let us steep ourselves in the sound of silence. When we say sound of silence, silence, if you listen carefully, has a sound of its own. It is not the complete and total absence of sound. Let us try to be still, still in body, still in mind. Let us settle the body. Let us arrange our seat in such a way that we are seated comfortably and yet that we are alert, with chest, neck, and head arranged in a straight line. Let us feel the divine and loving presence that pours its grace in us and through us, around us, beyond us. Let us now prepare our minds. Let us drink in the environment of the evening, the feeling of the evening, where sounds and sights are more subdued. Let us awaken our hearts with the feeling of compassion for all. Let us use our imaginations to do this. Let us imagine that within us is something like a shining sun, effulgent, that its rays are beaming everywhere, in all directions. Let us start by thinking that the rays are distributed in the 4 primary directions, and then the intermediate directions, and then split up so that we find the rays emanating from the central point everywhere. Just imagine the central inner entity as a disk akin to the sun itself. And with every ray that emanates, feel that it is transforming, that it has no limitation, that its glory spreads not only in every direction, but fills every space. Let us fill these spaces with values of strength, goodness, truthfulness, harmony, peace, love. Let us fill every space with beauty. Let us fill every space with the most supreme joy and happiness. Let us do this to our planet Earth and every person and place an event on it. There are so many fragmented forms to cover, from the tiny amoeba to the greatest entity, to the presiding deity that we call our most beloved personal God. Let this God's omnipresence, omniscience, and omnipotence embrace the whole world, not judging in its wake whether someone or something is good or evil, whether it is pleasant to look at or unpleasant. Let us appreciate and understand that this earth can be viewed as God's footstool. Let us consider time and space and causality as the framework that spreads divine glory everywhere to the furthest galaxies. Let us feel the indwelling presence beyond the borders of our own small planet Earth, going off into the infinity of space. Let waves of happiness, goodness, and peace permeate and bless all beings. Let us assert, may all beings be happy. May all beings be peaceful. May all beings be blissful. Let us cover by this the three worlds that exist, the Bhu, and the Swaha, and also the internally experienced worlds, the internal dimension of our waking state, the fantasy area of dream, and the peaceful state of awareness that we call deep sleep. Now let us salute mentally the great examples of holy lives, those that have been set up before us as our inspiration. Great, great teachers ranging from special incarnations to prophets and saints who lived a selfless life, who had enough generosity to fill the world with their holiness, giving us the opportunity to emulate their example. Let us make a salutation to our gurus and gurus of their gurus, our lineage, and ultimately to our most endearing form of God. Now let us begin the purification process of the mind. Let us repeat our mantra. And if you have not got a mantra, as usual, mentally repeat the sound symbol, the king of all mantras, Om. Let us try to do this 108 times or so. And let us invoke the Lord of the universe, symbolized by this sound form of mantra. Let us evoke the presence of this very divine, in our hearts, deep down within, in the innermost core of our being. Let us invoke that entity there through the use of our mantra. We will enter into external silence so that you may make this internal movement that we call japa. And now, just as we welcome any guests, we welcome the Lord into our hearts. This whole principle of Ishtadevata, a chosen ideal, is very important. Try to think of the most endearing form, the most endearing qualities that you can ever imagine. And the assemblage of that will be a small sample of this precious indwelling treasure, the indwelling entity that sits in our hearts. And having invoked and welcomed this entity to sit and preside, let us now assemble together all the actions of the day, all the thoughts of the day, whether they were worthy or not, whether they were good or bad, whether we are proud of them or not, whether we overreacted or whether we stayed calm, whether we were frustrated or whether we took all the ups and downs of life stoically and with forbearance. Let us assemble all of these and place them in the palms of our hands. Let us allow them to be offerings poured out at the feet of the divine. Just understand that all the energy that we used belonged to that same entity. Let us merely give back all the energy that flowed in us and through us back into this source, just as We take a pot and with precious water or milk, we pour it in the most sacred of our rivers. All rivers represent the flowing grace of the divine. They never stop, they flow on. They never pause for a moment. Greek philosophers once said, you can never step into the same river twice. It is always flowing to a destiny. Let us feel that we are carried by this flowing divine grace of the Lord. Let this Lord within preside now over the rest of our meditation. Let us first, having lovingly repeated the name of the Lord, now turn our attention to where the Lord's grace is manifest. Let's first turn our attention to the breath. Once more, let us use our mantra in order to be aware of the divine within the indrawn breath and the divine that stretches and spreads from the out-breath. Let us feel how this divine entity is operating the inflation and deflation of the lungs. Just as an ocean's waves come in and an ocean tide goes out, so too our breath enters, has its play, restores our vitality, and leaves. In this same way, thoughts enter into our mental frame, have their operation, and leave. Let us observe all these entries and exits in our mental frame, allowing them to come, allowing them to stay, allowing them to leave. Let us learn to fix our attention on simply a witness mode. That is, just sitting and watching while activities are felt in the body and activities are observed in the mind. Let us assert our capacity to see. Let us be the silent witness. Let us spend some moments in silence, being simply aware. What disturbs our peace of mind? It is when we do not understand or recognize that an eternal portion of this divine has become This soul, this living entity that we call I, in this world of other eyes, this aspect of life in a world of living things, that this eternal portion of the divine has attracted the senses with the mind as sixth, so that it can abide in what we call nature, consisting of body, mind, objects, consisting of the sky when we turn our head upward, consisting of the earth when we cast our eyes downward, consisting of colors and shapes when our eyes dart from left to right, consisting of relationships with other living beings, consisting of the events that enter and leave through the passage of time. This is the world of living entities. But it is that eternal portion of the divine who has become this living entity, what we call soul, in the world of souls. When we forget this fact, we call this ignorance. And what we call ignorance is darkness. But with this reminder, let us use this as a searchlight. An example of a lively, living thing is the sun itself, its companion, the moon. And in thunderstorms, lightning. And then there is that light that is produced through a light bulb from an electrical current. And then there is that light that comes as fire. And then there is that inner fire that produces internal heat, allows the body temperature to be consistent throughout the entire body, regardless of climate, regulating this body. And then there is the heat that is used, the fire that is used to digest our food. All these ancient sages and saints made connections. They made a connection between the sun. They made a connection between the lightning, fire. They made a connection with all these things that combine to assemble as what we call life. That link is nothing more than the supreme divine entity that resides in the depth of our soul. And so, let us now dive deeply into the area that is infinite. Let us consider that the soul is like a circle whose circumference is nowhere, but whose center is in a fixed position, designed only so that we may explore the inner worlds and discover the glory of this indwelling self. Let us sink down deeply to where we started, that lighting center within our hearts, whose brilliance is beyond that of stars or sun, whose expression is sheer joy. Let us feel that internal rapture, inevitable when we sink down deeply into its eternal presence, its infinite essence, its existence, its consciousness, its bliss. And what we will find in this infinite invisible, once more, is that depth that we call joyful silence. Let this pure being be the nectar that sustains us, the form that it takes as our most beloved personal God that we can talk to and listen to, that we may share all our difficulties, all our sorrows, and all our joys. Let us finish off this section of this meditation. O adorable Lord of mercy and love, salutations and prostrations unto thee. Thou art omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent. Thou art Satyajit Ananda, existence, consciousness, and pure bliss. Grant us an understanding heart, equal vision, balanced mind, faith, devotion, and wisdom. Grant us the inner spiritual strength to resist temptation and control the mind. Free us from all our vices. Fill our hearts with divine virtues. Let us behold Thee in all these various names and forms, Let us serve thee in all these names and forms. Let thy name be ever on our lips and thy presence be ever in our hearts. Let us abide in thee forever and ever. Let us abide in thee forever and ever. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Do not get up immediately after this or any other meditation. Remain there, basking in the glory of the divine. And you may enter back into a meditative state. But afterwards, play some inspiring music or read some scripture in half an hour or so. We continue our series on 15th chapter Bhagavad Gita, where we find many aspects of what we were guided through this evening as part of our meditation. I look forward to meeting you again on this YouTube channel.